You're welcome to the Cruising is Life podcast. Whether you're a seasoned cruiser or just starting out, we have something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and get ready to set sail with us on the Cruising is Life podcast.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Cruising is Life podcast. We're back with another episode. I actually remembered to plug in all the audio beforehand this time. But welcome back. Dimitri is back with us again after a short little hiatus there. And Tyler has returned for another week in a row. So welcome back, guys. How's it going?
Coop says you sound echo.
Oh
Sound
boy,
echo?
audio issues already into the show. Goodness gracious. We can't even start the podcast without us having issues.
Really?
I am track 150. I see you have a picture of a charger. Ooh, lame. While Brandon fixes it. Come on, Brandon.
There's nothing going on with my audio from what I see. He says we back, so
Okay.
I didn't do anything. But anyways, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another podcast. And so today we're going to wrap up kind of the cruise news that we have today because it was kind of, unexpected with a lot of these things. I wasn't expecting so much news in one single day, which is kind of awesome. But we got some big news from MSC, some ship updates, and we've got a world's largest cruise ship heading over to Galveston.
G-Town.
G-Town, that's what Tyler likes to call it.
That's not me, okay? I didn't come up with a nickname. Set the record straight. It's not my nickname calling Galveston G-Town. It's the official acronym. That's what I was told from my predecessors here at this great university of A&M Maritime Academy. So it's not my nickname, though.
Okay.
Yeah, set the record
Okay.
straight, okay, folks? Set the record straight, okay?
True, Jam.
Yes, but I guess this news is good for you, though, because you now have an icon class coming up here pretty soon for
That's
you.
right around my senior year, so perfect timing. Right, when the
perfect.
best ships show up, I get ready to leave. Isn't that great, right? Yeah. Isn't that the whole saying, right? Your college or education, right? That like as soon as you leave, they invest in some big $1 million thing, right? Isn't that the meme?
Yeah.
I think something like
In
that.
a football stadium after I'm gone.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to allude to, right?
Yeah, my college had a giant finance building or business building that was opened up like the year after I graduated. So I guess that makes sense too.
Right.
Right, but yeah, we're gonna dive into all the cruise news that we had today because we had again quite a lot. Let's start out with Icon. Let's go ahead and just like dive straight into that. It kind of wasn't too surprising because we alluded to a lot last week when we did all the deployments. She was mysteriously left off of those deployments that came out over the last 2 weeks or so, and you got to put the puzzle pieces together, and you kind of come to the conclusion that yeah, she's probably gonna move.
What I said, right? What I say last week, you got to put 2 and 2 together. So that's kind of what happened, right? Was 2 and 2 together. She was gone off the missing schedule. Icon 4 is coming out, which we'll talk to, I think, in this episode.
Mhm.
That was not announced today. We were expecting that to get announced. I will fill people into that. That's still unknown because that does play a role now because there still is no 7-night large ship out of Miami. Correct, Brandon? Dimitri, right? No large 7-night ship.
Not as of right now, and I think Caleb told me
Right.
to leak the name this podcast if I'm not mistaken. So
Gotta show the image to prove that we didn't. This is
oh, if you look on marine traffic, it's literally there on
Right.
marine traffic.
right. So this is not secret information. We did not break any NDAs. This is public source information, the best source.
Whoever told me is the one that broke the NDA.
Oh well. About that, folks. About
But
that.
yeah, but back to Galveston. I think this is going to be a great. It's going to be a great ship for Galveston, and we've kind of. I always figured by the time we end up with 4 and 5 Icon class ships, I kind of figured that Icon specifically, I didn't think they were going to get a new build from the Icon class, at least not yet. Maybe down the road if the market over there is doing that well, then maybe. But like right now, it just wouldn't make sense to do it. But with Perfect Day Mexico opening up, and of course Perfect Day Coco Cay, all that type of thing, I think it was about time we finally got an Icon class over in Galveston, and I think Icon would be a great fit.
Right.
we can't have everything here in Florida. I know sharing is caring, and as
Right.
much as I don't like sharing, I guess we do have to share.
Right. I do not like sharing my icon ships, but but yeah, I mean, again, where are you gonna put all these ships? I mean, the only other possibility that I would have thought of if they would have kept icon in Miami is that they would have doubled up and done an icon class. You know, the new icon class is going to Miami. Let's not beat around the bush with that. It's not official, but it only makes sense. Like, why else would they pull icon out of there?
2
But
plus 2 equals 4.
yes. So like the only thing that would have made sense otherwise was that if they did a Saturday and Sunday lineup like they used to do with the Oasis class, which they could still do probably with 5 and 6, you know, down the road. But I think, you know, it kind of made sense to pull one out, put it in Galveston, and then you got the new one going into Miami.
Right, it's the most logical sense, right? Think about it. They don't want to put. You can kind of argue that Galveston is the old Port Canaveral. What I mean by that is back in the day, Port Canaveral never got new ships. Royal Caribbean, yes, it had the Oasis. While Miami, Everglades always got the new ones. You can kind of see now Port Canaveral's the opposite. It's getting all these new ships. So in term, Galveston, if it keeps on growing the way it's predicted to grow, it probably could end up like that. However, interesting to know, which we'll talk MSC in a little bit here, is what I've heard is MSC Seascape that is sailing out of Pier 16, the all recently refurbished terminal. She ends up sailing full on her inaugural voyage. So, I mean, this is Icon. I think it will do a lot better than that ship, but this is something to note that can they sell an Icon class every sailing? Plus, they're still keeping an Oasis class there. That's something else that came out in the news today.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? I didn't know that. They
yes.
did.
Stephanie is staying here.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
For a time being, until she goes to dry dock or something like that. But she is saying that she's doing 6 and 8 nights as well, and I think she's doing a set of 4-4-5s or 4-5-5 or whatever that rotation is.
That's big.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's big for Galveston. That's awesome, having Oasis and an Icon.
Yeah, it's big news, and it all ties down to, as we talked about last week, it all ties down to, I believe, Perfect Day at Mexico opening up. I mean, that's kind of their big thing, which I mean, we'll talk about in a second here. I'm sure Dimitri has some commentary on this as well. It's pretty big news that they're not only talking about, you know, doing Perfect Day Mexico, they're doing also Coco Cay. So this is a really cool itinerary. We talked about this in the group chat, right? You can go to Perfect Day Mexico, you can go to Cozumel, and you can go, which is their beach club, right? And then you can go to Coco Cay in the Bahamas. I mean, it is literally Royal Caribbean. You know, you embark on a Royal Caribbean terminal. You don't have to leave the Royal Caribbean group the whole entire cruise, which is something that 20 years ago, you probably would have, someone said that, they probably would have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah, I think, you know, and we kind of talked about it this morning, obviously, through our group chat and everything like that. But it is interesting because on one hand, you know, you have to pay for most things for any of these private destinations that Royal Caribbean offers. They're, I wouldn't say a cash grab, but they are cash cows is probably the way to reference it. You know, from a shareholder standpoint, from a finance standpoint, it's fantastic for them. But you know, from a consumer standpoint, you know, that adds up, and it makes it, you know, very expensive for some of these cruises. Royal's very expensive to begin with. You know, and the nice part is that with Perfect Day Mexico and obviously Cozumel is just the beach club. So it's going to be just your regular Cozumel, and there's going to be like a little ticketed thing you can go to if you want to. Perfect Day Mexico is an entirely different expansion to the port. Regular cruise lines can still come in and dock their ships there and things like that. And Royal Caribbean guests can still use Perfect Day Mexico or use regular Costa Maya or Perfect Day Mexico at their, you know, discretion, whatever they want to do. It's basically their choice, which is good. Coco Cay, it's an island. You don't really have a choice. So that is a good thing. But, you know, when you visit a lot of these private islands or private destinations with Royal Caribbean, it can add up and cost a lot.
I think giving people options is the most. So other than her 8-day itinerary that we'll talk, so she's doing 6 and 8s. I don't know, did we say that?
6, 7, and 8s, which I think is what they currently do with Harmony right 6, now.
7.
They just don't do in the call. Get out of here. You are not
What
coming on the
happened?
spot.
Wait, what?
He said he did the 6-7 joke.
My God.
I was like, get out.
Get out.
But that's what Harmony does right now. She primarily does 7s, and then every now and then you'll get a 6 night and an 8 night. Because I remember when I was on Star, we actually were, we were near Harmony because she was out on an 8 night that week. But those 8 nights are, I think, at least in my opinion, those 8 nights are like the money makers and the one to do, because you get Perfect Day Coco Cay and Perfect Day Mexico and Cozumel all in one cruise, which is fantastic in my opinion. I would love that.
Are her 6 and 7s both Westerns, I assume?
Yeah. I don't
Everything
think
is Western except the 8 night, which goes to the
Yeah.
Bahamas.
Which is still technically Western. It's just that it goes all the way out to Bahamas for the other half of it.
Right.
And I want to mention this. This is something interesting on my side in terms of being in Galveston. I personally like when these ships do the 6 and 8 night cruises, especially the Oasis class. Not sure how the Icon is going to do in terms of turnaround days. I believe she'll be similar to what Harmony does in terms of keeping that spot, but I'm not sure because I think Liberty is still doing, while the Symphony is here, is doing the 7 nights. So I'm not sure how that operates. But why I like doing those 6 and 8 night cruises is the fact that it kind of makes it so there's a ship every day here in Port. Now, this is for the average cruiser. It doesn't matter, but for our ship spotter wise, it's pretty cool because you get some unique lineups. So, which will be interesting. We'll get into that kind of at the end of the episode. We talk about MSC with their new order that came in today. Is that coming to G-Town? We'll talk about that later, but that's something interesting. I personally love that they're doing the 6 and 8 nights, and I'm kind of sad the Harmony for the winter, she stops and goes back to 7s, but then eventually goes back to the 6 and 8 nights during the summer.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, again, I think that's one thing with Galveston is that they're, geographically, they're just limited to where they can go. So sometimes you just need those longer itineraries too. So I like the idea of doing the 8 nights with those.
Right.
Agreed.
But
why has nobody, as in the cruise lines, started building up Progresso? I've never looked into it, but why is Progresso still a dump?
it's okay. So I actually went to Progresso when they first opened it up, like for cruise ships, and this was back in, this is the inaugural season for the Carnival Glory. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
Yes, that was the one and only time I've been to Progresso. It's like a mile-long pier. Again, it's been so long, so I don't know. So I don't know if it's changed or anything like that, but it was like a mile-long pier. And then, there wasn't much going on there. But the only cruise line right now, I know Carnival will do it with the 4 and 5s, like out of New Orleans, and I think occasionally Galveston, like on a 4 and 5 night cruise. But the only other cruise line that I know that goes there on a consistent basis is Margaritaville.
Islander goes there.
Right, exactly.
Why does a Virgin ship stop there?
They used to go to Bimini a lot.
Bimini, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've seen them in Progresso. I don't know. Whatever.
Carnival Breeze goes there pretty much every other week or something like that. When she does the 5 and 4 nights, she does go to Progresso. I believe they swapped that with Costa Maya. I know I've seen Breeze in Progresso a few times. Well, what's interesting is that Progresso, you're asking, why doesn't cruise lines invest? Actually, they invested really heavily, but not the side that we think.
I just saw your text
earlier. Yeah, I just sent that. So basically, Fincantieri has invested heavily into Progresso to build a massive shipyard for large cruise ships. So yes, the cruise lines through Fincantieri have invested in Progresso, but it's not the way that we expect, like in Costa Maya, where they expected, passenger oriented. This is more service side. And that's kind of gives you what Progresso is. If you ever see it on marine traffic, there's a lot of cargo ships and not really a lot of passenger vessels. So it's kind of with Freeport, right? Freeport is a very big shipyard and stuff like that. It's kind of the Freeport of Mexico, if you will. That makes an analogy, if you will.
Okay, yeah. I agree with that. And it's good that we're finally getting some of these.
Sorry.
Yeah, I heard about this for like a long time ago that they were going to do that, but it's 2025, years later, and it's still nothing happening. But it seems like we're finally getting to that point. But at the same time, like, it's good to see that we're getting, these dry docks over here in the States, or like not in the States, but in the Caribbean, just because
Why did it
it's
take
so
40
much
years?
right. It's logistically so much easier. Like we used to dry dock the Oasis class here, yeah, but that things happened, and they also just don't really have the capabilities to do it properly. So that's why they always go over to Europe almost every year. But that'll give them. So I know in Freeport specifically, they've got the 2 current dry docks. They're going to completely redo those. They got 2 more large ones that are capable of holding Icon class. They specifically named the Icon class ships that they'll be able to have there, and then they're gonna have a floating one like they did with Vista way back.
I will say this. This is something that if you're building anything in the industry nowadays and you're not building it for Icon class, you're building it wrong. I mean, look, even we know
Absolutely.
Carnival, not to get ahead of ourselves here, but Carnival's new class of ship, we know it's going to be bigger than Icon. So the fact that you say, oh, well, we're going to build it for like Voyager class, you're losing business. I will take note here. You mentioned shipyards in America, in the West Coast. There are ones in Portland, Oregon that does service a lot of the West Coast cruise ships, but still nothing compared to the ones in Cadiz, as well as I think France is another big one.
Yeah, Marseille has a big one. Yeah, it's good to have it over here because, again, logistically speaking, it's so much more cost effective for them to keep them here. You don't have to do the long haul across the Atlantic, and then, of course, it's good to mix it up and send a ship over there during the summertime, of course. But it's sometimes you need to do quick maintenance, and if you need to do quick maintenance, that may not happen. If you have to go all the way over to Europe for that.
Right. I mean, just look at what happened to the Vista, right? The Vista, they had to bring a ship in to service the pods because there was no dry dock of that size in America. So that just shows you what cruise lines are going through. So that's, it's in the news, it's in the industry today. That's why we're kind of talking about this for a second here. I mean, just look at, especially having these ships sail in the Gulf and all this stuff and be home ported year round. You don't want to send a ship over to Europe, right? That's something that if you could have it to be serviced close to home, you're going to be making more money because you don't have to take it out of service for as long. It's only a 2 to 3 day trip to dry dock versus 10 to 15 days.
Right, exactly. And with all these Icon class coming too, like there's going to be a lot of them at one time that's going to, overwhelm some of these I mean, there's only so many places right now that can dry dock these, being basically just Cadiz. So if you can open up availability over in the Bahamas or Progresso or things like that, it makes it a lot easier. So again, the Icon class is essentially like the size standard. Everything basically from now on, there's Project Discovery, there's the new Disney ships, things like that. But like majority of cruise lines are building ships over 200,000 tons. Even Disney has a ship coming over 200,000 tons, which really says something. So, it's...
Is it actually coming, though?
Well, that's what they say, at least.
It's what the folks say. We'll believe it when we see it, though.
Right, and I see it, actually, I see in the
Discovery.
chat, a prime example was Mardi Gras. She was gone for nearly 2 months just for her 2-week dry dock. 2 weeks caused her to be 2 months out of service. I don't think she did. Did she do a transatlantic cruise or not? But still, I mean,
I think she did.
she was away from her regular sailings for nearly 2 months. It's crazy, just for routine maintenance.
She didn't do a season in Europe, correct? She just went over there straight to dry dock, right?
No, she left like mid-September. Okay, she did transatlantic both ways, so I guess that's a little bit better. But yeah, and again, going back to how many, the size standard with, all these Icon class and stuff like that. Like we're gonna end up with nearly 8. Well, I guess we are exactly 8. World class from MSC. We're gonna have 7 Oasis class ships. All these new Ace class ships from Carnival. Norwegian has ships over 200,000 tons coming, so that's good. And to dive really deep into it now with MSC, I think MSC is the one that caught me off guard today. I was not expecting.
Oh yeah.
I was not expecting a 7th and 8th ship out of that class. I was actually more surprised actually that it was a world class that was ordered today, and not the either. I've heard Constellation class and Ultimate class used interchangeably, but basically this next generation ship from MSC. I've been hearing so much about those, and I'm more surprised that those weren't ordered today.
World Class seems to be doing good though. I haven't heard a lick of anything wrong with World Europa in Europe, which no news is good news.
Right.
So that must mean it's doing it. Same thing with World America. Very minimal, just it's a new ship here, so people are giving their opinions and stuff. But other than that, it's a good sized ship, good amenities. I think, yeah, might as well just build them if they're not ready for like their next class. Like, you know what I mean? I think it's like a stopgap maybe.
And I think a little bit of it, because what I've heard a little bit like that following all this is that the Constellation class is happening. It is in fact going to be larger than Icon. We're not even going to beat around the bush on that one. Yeah, that's basically a fact at this point, and what to expect out of this next generation ship from MSC. But the thing is that the ships were originally going to be built at Meyer Turku, which is where they're building the Icon class, and they, because they were planning on building there, they had all sorts of stuff going on and in progress with them. All of a sudden, Royal Caribbean pulled the rug on them, and basically locked down the whole shipyard basically for the next 10 years. So they can't build, those ships there anymore. So now they're kind of not necessarily in a panic mode, but they're more of just like, all right, shoot, like, where do I go now? Like, I've got to find somebody else to build these. So I think that's kind of part of it. It was probably easier for them to just go ahead and have Chantiers build 2 more world class. And like Dimitri said, they're basically printing money at this point because they're doing so well. And there's only 2 of them, with World Europa doing relatively good, like very good, over in Europe. But then you have almost like a generational leap between Europa and America with all the stuff that they added with the ropes course. They have the slide on both of them, but like they added so much between Europa to America, and they're only improving on that with Asia. And there's already a ton of demand and a ton of excitement for World Atlantic coming after that, coming to the States. Like, these ships are, despite being from basically the new kid on the block type of cruise line, there's already a lot of hype and a lot of demand for these ships. So might as well make more of them while you're still kind of in that final phase of building and creating and developing these next generation ships. Kind of just like the Discovery class. Keep building the icons until you've got the next thing perfect. They're printing money. So, keep them coming till you can get the next thing out perfect.
Why are we not building more Meraviglia Plus class ships?
It's a good question. I think I haven't been on them yet. I'm going on Grandiosa. But no, it's a good question. I have no idea. They have 5 of them. That's kind of the thing. Once you get to a certain number, and that's weird to say because, it's like, yeah, well, now we have 8 world class coming. So, why not build more of those? But I guess it's just trying to figure out, like, the happy medium of a specific ship, how well it does, and then in comparison to, how many of the same thing you can put out. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, as much as I'm excited for the 8 world-class ships, there's going to be 8 of them.
Where the heck are they going to go?
Right, exactly. And like,
MSC going to do their debut in Port Everglades. Who's waiting for that?
Honestly, I wouldn't be
surprised.
They're going
to 29 and stick a world-class back there. Who knows?
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. And kind of like Tyler maybe jokingly said earlier, but Galveston? Question mark with one of these. They're not going to get a new one. Don't take that and run with it, but they're going to get a new one. Or they're not going to get a new one, but they're going to get a world class. They might get World America after a couple of years. Once we have 5 and 6 out, maybe World America replaces Seascape.
Did they say what year? Was it 30, 31
Basically, there's a world class in order every year for the
every
rest of the
year?
decade. So Asia is 26, Atlantic's 27, 28 is going to be number 5, 29 is it 29? Maybe it's 2030, I don't know, but I think the 8th one is 2032 if I'm not mistaken. So there's a 1 year gap maybe at most.
Okay, so that 1 year gap is when their new design is going to come out and be finished building, and they're going to release it soon. More
Right, and
details.
it kind of, makes me question is like when 7 and 8 are coming out, are they going to build the Constellation class simultaneously somewhere? Is
They're gonna have
Chantiers going to build it, or are they going to go to Fincantieri? Because again, they don't really have an option anymore. It's either Fincantieri or Chantiers to build anything but Royal Caribbean at this point, which is kind of ridiculous in a sense. And with all the ship orders right now, there's well over 100 ships on order right now between every cruise line that's out there, which is insane to think about. We kind of need more shipyards. You know
Well,
what I
here's
mean?
a concept here, right? And that's to kind of talk about this. How are the South Koreans? They build really amazing merchant mariner vessels, but how are
They
they
don't
with
build very
cruise
good
ships? Do we hear
cars.
anything? Wow.
That is
Hey,
true.
Look at it, boy.
They build nice cars, just not reliable ones.
They
look
make
at that.
good-looking cars, just not reliable
Yes.
ones.
Yes.
But that's a question to
Anyways,
bring up because there's a big shipyard. I mean, that just bought the Philadelphia shipyard in the U.S. Likely any cruise ships being built there. But the reason I mentioned that it was recently bought by the South Koreans who bought that shipyard, and they have supposedly, and this is what we hear at the Maritime School. It could be just a rumor mill, but what they claim is that they can build a ship about 75% in South Korea, tow it all the way to Philadelphia, and that ship will be Jones or Passenger Vessel Service Act compliant. I don't know how true that is, but that is an interesting observation we have here. So, could we see a large U.S. flagship? I doubt it, but it is a
you know
thing
how
to keep in your
expensive that
head.
would be?
Yeah, again, it's unlikely. It's a fever dream, but you don't tell that to the
Uh,
politicians who are lobbying for money. They'll be like, "Oh, we can build the next Queen Mary here or something." I don't know.
Fever dream times 20, I would say. Having a U.S. flagged ship, I don't really know anybody's opinions on having a U.S. flagship or a U.S. built ship. It is way too expensive. From every standpoint, every way you look at it, it's just way too expensive.
Yep.
Because the U.S. has relatively high wages for the most part. We're also very lazy, so we don't work a lot. So it's going to take forever to get it built. Let's be honest here. It's going to take forever to get it built. It's going to be very expensive because we're going to ask for a ton of money to be working there. And not a bad thing. I mean, I want to make a bunch of money too. I'm not complaining that we ask for a lot of money here in the States, but that's just how it is. Other countries don't, they have lower exchange rates, things like that. I'm getting off track here, but exchange rates and things like that, sometimes these lower wages don't necessarily mean lower quality of life in other countries. Prime example is all these crew members on these cruise ships. It's like, yeah, they're getting paid pennies on the dollar compared to what we would make here in the U.S. And they're working much, much more and much longer hours. But that's normal over in those countries. And the exchange rates, they're making a ton of money compared to what they would be making back home. I guess is what I'm trying to allude to there.
Yeah, right. Not to dive in the subject even further, we could do a whole podcast on why
Right.
U.S. ships aren't there. But to your point, to kind of drive home this point about how much money, this is something I find interesting, right? Is for us Americans, the money that if we got paid on a ship would be terrible. But for the Filipinos and people of that part of the world, that $20 you give them as a tip, that's a good bit of wage right there. So. Again, the point of this conversation here is tip your crew members well if they provide good service.
Prime example is the Pride of America with Norwegian. they have to staff it with U.S. people, and that kind of correlates quite well with the bad reviews that ship gets. The ship itself is basically there only because it has beautiful destinations, but it never reviews well as a ship itself.
Right, and that's just the U.S. merchant marina as a whole. Okay, the pool is very tiny of people who want to work on a ship. So
yeah, no American really wants to work on a cruise ship, at least for
no,
a very long time.
man.
I know American cruise members
double anywhere else.
Right, exactly. Like it's not for the money. That's definitely not why people, Americans want to go work on a cruise ship. They're very few and hard to come by. Somebody that actually wants to go work on a cruise ship here in the U.S.
That is correct.
But back to MSCs.
Yeah, back to our main subject here.
Again, I think with 8 of these, though, I mean, there's only so many places they can put them. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of just focus these in on the U.S. with Florida ports. Maybe we eventually have Seashore get replaced. Please. Not in a bad way, but, I want something different than Seashore here in Port Canaveral now. She's been here for a couple of years. And that's why I'm so excited for Grandiosa and eventually World Atlantic is, kind of start rotating these around. But what if we get a world-class doing 3s and 4s? What?
I said, doesn't Grandiosa get here soon?
Next month.
Like next month? Next month?
I think it's like middle of December.
You're obviously going on it, but I didn't know what the date was.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, it's what if we get a world class on 3s and 4s? That's even more competition for Royal Caribbean there. And I think like all of today's news, whether it be Icon, going to Galveston and expanding on that, and more Icon class are coming, or the more World class are coming, and those are probably going to be maybe focused into the U.S. a little bit more because they do so well in the U.S. Like, the rivalry is heating up between these two companies, and I actually have a video coming out tomorrow comparing the two private islands. But like, there's no really questioning, like, these two are rival companies now, and they're going at it more than we've ever seen, at least in the last like 30 years. I've never seen a competition like this or a rivalry like this since Carnival and Royal back in like the mid 90s. And it wasn't even close to what this is.
Right. I mean, it's interesting to see here, man.
It's good to see, too. It's good to have competition. I mean, you can't just let Royal run away with it. That's kind of what they started to do.
Royal first. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's agreed upon,
Royal
right?
Caribbean.
I
love that they're on top right now. They're on top, and they're just stretching their margins higher and higher every single year. They're doing so much better each and every year, and it's fantastic. But at some point, you have to have competition, or they're going to monopolize the market. So Carnival's just doing whatever Carnival decides to do at this point. Norwegian's on their own little side quest, not in a bad way, but they're kind of on their own little side quest. They're not trying to build the biggest and best ships. They're just trying to go for a nice, like, relaxed thing here.
Right, and that's kind of interesting to see,
not everybody wants the big ships. I'm surprised nobody's coming to the chat like, I don't want an amusement park on the ocean.
So that is a cool thing, and I think that's where MSC is slightly ahead with Project Discovery, is that they have Explorer Journeys, that luxury, quote-unquote luxury line with them. Those ships are 70+ thousand tons. Those are bigger than the Carnival Fantasy ever was. Like, those are pretty large ships, and they can do whatever there's 6 of those coming. I think 2 are out, and they've got 4 more coming. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. Exactly what Royal Caribbean is looking for Project Discovery to do, is those exotic and smaller destinations. So they have that just in their own little luxury sector. So
they seem to be doing like 7-day cruises from Miami. Like, they're not. Like, they're doing some crazy stuff as they reposition, but normally they're on 7-day cruises or 9-day cruises, like nothing extravagant.
I've heard they're
which are
incredible
good.
too. Yeah, our
I've heard they're
Adam has been on at least one, and he said it was like the most incredible experience he'd ever been on, like on any cruise line, because of how small and intimate the atmosphere was, and how it was kind of traditional cruising, but also kind of with that still, typical feel that you would get on most ships.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I heard nothing but good reviews about Explorer Journey. And that's kind of
Right.
something to talk about too, right? About cruise lines. People complain about, oh, I want to go like Royal Caribbean. Why don't you build a small ship? But now with Royal Caribbean's really cool loyalty program, you could sail on a really small ship, either with that Celebrity, which isn't super tiny as Explorer Journeys, but with Silver Seas, for example, if you want that level of service, you can do it and still get your points for your Royal Caribbean. So that's something that people, I don't know, nowadays you can't really argue why aren't these cruise lines building smaller ships. I mean, Carnival you can, right? Carnival doesn't have a competitor, even though they do in their market. I guess
They're
Seabourn
competing
is
with
there
themselves
still.
at this point.
Yeah, Seabourn. Yeah.
And they're not doing a good job with it.
No, it's terrible. It's a subject for another day, the whole loyalty program. We talked about that on the podcast before, at least you guys have, but that's a whole debacle. At least Royal, at least they learned not to do that with their new loyalty thing. I think it's actually great. And that's something cool to see is that you can go on a small ship, which, again, is really cool how MSC also has a really good loyalty program with their match, for meaning if you have Pinnacle on Royal, you can go be whatever Pinnacle is on MSC, which I think is cool.
Yeah. Speaking of, and we'll dive into loyalty programs here for a second because you mentioned it.
Yeah.
The whole point system and like the dollar amount going into the loyalty program and how many points you earn, that's what MSC does. The issue with Carnivals is that it resets, which is a diabolical thing to do. You spend all that money to get to a certain status. I'm going to be honest, I didn't think Carnivals, and this isn't me bashing Carnival, this is just me being honest about all of this, but Carnival's loyalty perks weren't that good. The only thing that I ever really looked forward to when I was on a Carnival cruise is the fact that I had priority boarding as a platinum member. Not really anything else other than that. Like, I didn't get anything else. There's nothing else that I really was dying for every time. I got a pin, and I was one of the first few people on board. Whoopee.
Pin. Wow,
But, like,
that's a big gift.
But with MSC, what they do well with theirs is like, yeah, okay, sure, you get the dollar, you have to spend a certain dollar amount to, start increasing yourself, but they have that status match, which is good. And I think that's beneficial for them because they're, again, the new kid on the block, essentially. And that, we're trying to get people to try them. Their prices are low and they're status matching. They're trying to bring in as many people as they can. And I think they're doing a pretty decent job of doing it right now, especially with Carnival, kind of driving away their own customers. But with that not resetting, it's it's good because obviously that's consumer friendly. Obviously nobody wants their status match or their status reset, but their perks are actually good. You get a lot of stuff out of it, or at least a decent amount of stuff out of it. Like with MSC, like being a gold status, I get a day in the thermal suite for free. Usually you got to spend what, a couple $100 to go into a thermal suite for a day. You also get a credit. You get a free trip on the F1 simulator and some of the arcade stuff. Like, you get a decent amount of things, and that's only gold status, and that's a relatively low tier. When you get up to the higher and like all the way up to blue diamond, like you get some really crazy things. So I mean, MSC may be the same when it comes to a dollar amount goes into how many points you get. I have no problem with that. So I think in that sense, MSC is doing it well. If you're going to take that type of structure with your loyalty points.
Right. And that's something that's kind of interesting, the whole loyalty concept, which is still, to this day, Royal Caribbean has the best in terms of bang for your buck spent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's interesting to see other cruise lines get close to it. I mean, Norwegian has a pretty good thing for Pinnacle, like whatever their Pinnacle is, their ambassador program.
Yeah.
But that's a high number of days, kind of like Pinnacle
700,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's comparable to Pinnacle, which is very hard to get to for the average person. Obviously, Royal Caribbean Pinnacle you can get in less than a year if you go all suites, but still, unless you're the average Joe, it's not very attainable.
Mm-hmm.
However, the I guess cost to what you get is pretty good. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, Disney isn't even that great. I mean, yeah, you get some good perks, but it's still not even that great. For the amount of money you spend, it's crazy.
And I mean, and I say all this about the Carnival one. I'm not necessarily going on a cruise for quote unquote loyalty perks. That's like the least of my concern. Like I enjoy getting like a early boarding time, sure. But like it's not my most, that's not my biggest concern here. I want to make sure I'm having a good experience on the ship. I could care less if I was a blue card or a diamond on Carnival Cruise Line. I want to make sure I'm having a good experience. So there is that. I will say, I'll give it in that sense. Like it's not, the loyalty status isn't really that big of a deal for me. Other than, I think it's just, it's a very anti-consumer friendly or anti-consumer, business practice of what they're doing with it. And a lot of things, Carnival used to be one of those companies where, pretty much everything was free. Like almost everything was included. Whereas now you're basically getting nickel and dimed for everything. They don't even serve bacon every single day on those ships.
Yeah.
Why isn't there bacon in the buffet every day? I mean, does it really cost them that much money?
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, you can get Cisco bacon, not even the good stuff you can get for that. I mean, every other cruise line can. I mean, that's the whole argument, too, which I was talking to somebody this weekend. I was out filming the MSCC Escape Depart for the first time here. Video up on my channel soon. Shameless plug here. But what's interesting, right, is that they were talking to me. They're like, Tyler, this is unacceptable. I was on the Carnival Jubilee, and even in the buffet, they had tacos, right? And they were charging for those. They were specialty tacos, but still, they weren't anything crazy. $2 a taco. I was like, what?
What kind of specialty tacos? What kind of specialty tacos are they serving on Jubilee?
Oh, I forget what one he was telling me it was. I think it was like
Mexican inspired.
Yeah, it was something like that. In the buffet, $2. Now, I was curious how they charge for that. Like, you get your seat pass or whatever they call Carnival, your faster the fun card. I'm not a Carnival guy, but you get the point. Their ship card. How do you charge for that? And it's in the buffet. It's not a, you don't swipe your seat pass card to get in the buffet. How? So that was interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised now if they start charging for burgers at the buffet. Jeez.
I mean, if you're going to charge $2, you may as well just not charge. I mean, it obviously is gonna add up, but like, really $2. They also charge for churros. Man. They charge for churros now, and donuts.
That's the same thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's like this was tacos, but they're charging for that too, and that's crazy, right? Something has to give. People have to say, okay, look, if I'm going to be paying nickel and diming for this, I might as well get a better cruise experience. So I'm not saying Carnival cruise experience is bad, but for the price you pay, and then you have to play plus, you might as well just pay the extra money that you're going to pay in add-ons and go on Royal or someone who gives you a lot more for an included price. It's crazy. Yeah, value added.
That's my thing. Like, I love Carnival. I've been on them with more than anybody else, but like their prices over time have gone up, but the value has gone down. You're not getting the same value for your cruise despite the price of the cruise going up as you used to get. So that's kind of the biggest thing is, you're getting maybe equal to less of an experience that you were getting for much less price.
I'm going to say something pretty controversial here, so everyone buckle up. If you want a better budget cruise than Carnival, you're probably better in terms of bang for your buck. You're probably better going Margaritaville right now. That's a little crazy, but from what I've seen, you get so much included on Margaritaville. Now, of course, back in the day, it was like Carnival nickel and diming wise, but now that Margaritaville owns the company outright, it's pretty much as good of burgers, pizza, everything that you would get, and their drinks are even stronger too. So if you're into drinking, I don't think they limit you at 10 either. So.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started on the drinks in the private island. Do not even get me started. I took a shot at both them and Norwegian in my video that comes out tomorrow about their drink packages not included on the private island. That is disgraceful. But back to we got way off topic on that. But back to our
We
cruise
did.
news
This
though.
was.
So you mentioned MSC Seascape coming into Galveston. That is a pretty significant piece of cruise news there over the last couple of days. You were there for that. You weren't on board, but you were there for that. How was it?
I was. So I was there the whole weekend filming her in port. It was great seeing her at Pier 16. She's going to be sharing that terminal, Pier 16, with Norwegian. MSC kind of paid almost the bill, but Norwegian gave a few dollars for the terminal. The terminal is amazing. It's probably the best terminal here in Galveston, besides Royal Caribbean. In terms of layout,
Really?
the terminal layout, in terms of driving, when I picked up Mr. Jerry Pike and Justin Hirsch, was pretty great. It was like a comparable to Florida, Port Canaveral. The garage, which is, again, for Galveston, it's a big deal. There is a garage by Harborside, but not like a terminal. That terminal, I think, is probably the best terminal in the port. Now, from what I've seen inside from photos and videos, it's really comparable to Florida as well. Still up
It
in
literally
the,
was
yeah,
just a
it's
warehouse
still,
originally.
right. But now it's looking pretty sharp.
Really?
Now, so that's something to see, and that was really cool to see. This was a shocking thing, which I didn't really talk about in my video coming out, but I was a little worried because I was in the port of Galveston on Saturday, the day before, when it was just the Dream and the Jubilee, and when I went to go pick up Jerry and Justin around 10:30, which is not super early. It's that time, right, when debark is ending and embark is about to start.
Yeah.
And Harborside, just for 2 ships, was backed up about a mile, almost all the way to Pelican Island Bridge, which for the folks who are local around the area was crazy. However, when it was a 4-ship day, Regal Princess, Carnival Dream, MSC Seascape, and Harmony, I thought it was going to be absolutely crazy. However, to test that out, I went around the same time, and I could flow all the way to the Harmony without stopping. It was amazing to see. And that was something I was shocked with because, again, as I said, Jubilee and Dream, not anywhere the numbers of what all 4 ships are embarking, right? That's like half of that. So that was cool to see. 4 ships, not a problem here in Galveston. In terms of departure-wise, I will say this. I mean, Brandon and Dimitri, y'all know that MSC typically has 1,800 when they first start out, but I was unfortunate to see it was pitch black, but she looked amazing. It was absolutely cool seeing her set sail. Beautiful ship here for the market. It's unfortunate that it's only one MSC ship here to begin with because, I mean, shoot, I think it's a waste of that beautiful terminal, but hopefully they'll bring 2 or maybe a larger ship here soon. I mean, even though I think you said that the Seascape is larger than the World Class, right?
She's longer, yes.
Longer.
That's it. Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I will.
Oh boy!
What I've been kind of hearing rumblings is that these, through World Atlantic, they're all going to be basically the same. But following World Atlantic, so 5 through 8 are going to be roughly 20 meters longer, from what I had been told. So that puts them about 1,150 feet, and these are also taller ships than the Oasis class and the Icon class. That's going to put them very close in tonnage-wise. These back half of the World class might end up being slightly larger than the Oasis class. That's not confirmed, but if that holds to be true, or what I was told to be true, we could end up seeing some ships that are at least equivalent in size to an Oasis class, which we have never seen before. We'll have to wait and see. That's one of those things we'll find out when we get there, but it's definitely something that definitely piqued my interest when I was told that.
Peaky.
Peaky. But, and again, like you said, I think Seascape is a feeler ship for Texas as well. I think it's a good mid-sized ship. I mean, she's pretty big, but it's a good sized ship for them to test out the waters there, basically, for them. Whether they add a second ship out there or they just put a bigger ship out there. I think this is only a start for MSC over in Texas. I think once they kind of gain traction and gain a good foothold in that market, they're just going to start putting bigger and better ships there and more of them.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Royal is there. MSC's there. When is Norwegian? I mean, I know they already put Prima or Viva over there, but I know they don't have their big ship yet. But when are they going to double up over there? When are they going to expand over there?
So from what I hear, the word on the street here is Norwegian, which this is a big move. So this is not putting a big ship, Dimitri. But from what I hear, they're eventually going to go year-round out of here, which is a big deal because right now they're only seasonal.
It is a big deal.
So that's their big ship move. I mean, I predict they're going to keep the Primo or Viva here year-round for the time being. Eventually, they'll get a new ship here, but I think it'll be a while. I don't think we're going to see the Aqua or the Luna. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was bummed that I missed the Escape. She was out of here for about a month, and I was fortunately on winter break, so I was back home. But I again, I don't know what's a good ship for that. I know Norwegian doubled down on Galveston. They've, again, as I said, split the bill with MSC on the new terminal or refurbished terminal. So that means, again, year-round operation, as well as Regent and possibly Oceania sailing out of here. Now, that's a little crazy. Now, that's something when I saw that Oceania is sailing out of Galveston for a few sailings, not many, like 2 to 3.
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked because Oceania is a pretty luxury line, or region, I should say, sailing out of here. It's a pretty luxury line for Galveston, considering we pretty much have all the mainstreams, nothing really specialty. So that was interesting to pique our interest. But speaking of growth in Galveston, Roger Reese, who is the CEO of the Port of Galveston, has come out, said he's leaked a lot of things that unfortunately never really played out, but he has kind of kept this one in the bag. But a new cruise line coming to Galveston in around 2028. Interesting to see. Now, again, he didn't say that new ships are coming, a new cruise line. So read in between the lines there, meaning people are saying it's going to be a new Disney ship, which it could be, but we don't know. He said new cruise line. So we thought Margaritaville, but obviously that didn't play out with the Beachcomber. Still could be them,
Still
but
could.
What do you guys think? New cruise line, Galveston, 2028. What do you think, guys?
I think it would be Margaritaville. I mean, Disney's already there, though.
Right, that's why I said people
Disney's
are
already
saying the Wish, but it's already there.
I think it would either be Margaritaville, maybe Celebrity.
Celebrity, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Celebrity.
Celebrity wouldn't be a bad fit out there. I say the Prima class isn't really a good fit for Texas because of all the sea days. I know, like with Dimitri, when he had, with his experience on Viva, those ships don't really seem to do well on itineraries with a lot of sea days, whereas Viva for him was very good because there was one or none.
We had no sea days.
No sea days, exactly. So I'm excited to try out that ship. I think they're fantastic ships, and I can't wait to. Actually, our Prima tour is coming up. We get to actually try and.
It will be your first time on board.
Yes, it'll be my first time on board, and then we've got our final payment for Luna coming up too. so thrilled for that. But that's what, honestly, Luna is one of the ships I'm looking forward to going on most right now. Grandiosa and Luna are like my two that I'm looking forward to the most right now.
Right. I mean, those are super cool ships.
Mm-hmm. I do see in the chat, I see that Oasis 8 is not really coming anymore with this new MSC order. I'm not too surprised by that. I don't know if Oasis 8 was even going to be a thing in the first place. I wanted it to because it just didn't make sense to end at 7, because they've always do the pairs. But I think with the agreement at Meyer Turku, it doesn't really throw it out of the possibility that maybe they just build the 8th one there if that ends up being the case, if they end up trying to do that. So, Royal can do basically almost 2 ships a year, to my knowledge, out of Meyer Turku if they really tried. Or at least,
I wouldn't be shocked if they put Oasis
Star
8.
came out in August. All right, so she was finished in, I guess they finished her, probably in June-ish. So the Legend is going to be out by, I think it's June or July. Still, basically like one full calendar year between those 2 ships. So they can put out 1 Icon class ship a year. I mean, so you're looking at 10 ships?
3 were under construction at the same time in Turku. I mean, as long as you stagger things,
if you
also use chantiers in France and pump out either your smaller class ships or the other Oasis. I mean, you can have because just like Utopia slid under the radar right behind Icon, right between
exactly.
Icon and Star.
And that's going to happen
so
again.
It's like you can. I think if they keep that up, I mean, I don't know if they're going to, but
yeah, I don't think obviously fairness here, but I don't think it would be, it's not really fair for them to lock down an entire shipyard. What's
Oh my word! The whole Corps cadets is in the studio here, folks.
That's funny.
Everyone say hi. Say hi.
We got pilots in
big
training.
Fans. Oh my word! Now our
training.
camera's getting hijacked here, folks. Oh look, guys. Oh my word! This is professionalism. Anyway, as we were talking about this, we'll do this live.
I
here.
mean, what sense does that make for Royal Caribbean to lock down an entire shipyard for 10 years and then start building them other places too? Like, all the other cruise lines are all backed up. Like, crap, we can't get ships out fast enough because they're taking up literally every single giant shipyard right now. Like, that's kind of ridiculous.
Right, and that's something interesting to watch here when we're talking the new build ships here. How is that going to play with Project Discovery? Is Project Discovery going to be built at Perku? Do we know that yet?
Absolutely.
Speaking of that, how is that going to affect Oasis 8?
All but confirmed.
Okay.
I think part of this agreement was their way to try to lock in docking space for Discovery class whenever those finally do get ready, because if they drag their feet out any longer, those ships are going to be well past in like mid 2030s. So this was their way to at least like secure the ability to have something built there in a relatively quick manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to watch those ships. Again, I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm really shocked as how it's going to happen with the Discovery class. Again, as you mentioned, they kind of all but confirmed at this point.
Right, exactly. I mean, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they build? I mean, unless they wanted to go to Papenburg, but Papenburg's filled with Disney ships right now, which is insane to say because Disney, 5 years ago only had 4 ships. Now they're about to have, 13? Like, they're growing almost at the pace of MSC right now. Not quite, of course, but they're putting out numbers like crazy, just like MSC is.
Right. I mean, that's crazy that MSC is for a while they were just pumping ships out. Royals pretty much at that point too. They were there with the Icon, Utopia, Wonder. I mean, it's interesting to see now other cruise lines. I mean, it's interesting. Norwegian, right? We have news of big orders on the way, right? With that new class. Is that still in the works? Do we know any more about that? Is that coming out? Okay, it's in the order. Okay.
They've been ordered. They were ordered around the same time as Project Ace with Carnival. So those are coming. Okay. Those are ordered. Those are confirmed. The only thing that is really not confirmed out of these future projects is Discovery class and the Constellation class from MSC. So those are the ones that we're kind of waiting on the orders for. But what I'm hearing is that those could be ordered any day now. It's just when.
Could be.
And it seems like MSC is just trying to find a right shipyard basically at this point to build them.
Interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to wait and see. I think it's either going to be Fincantieri, which I'd be surprised if it's Fincantieri, unless they can just get them out quicker, or it's going to be Chantiers.
I could see that. Again, that's something interesting. Is the stated, to quickly say my point is, I'm shocked that as you said, there's so little shipyards that can build big ships. In the industry, going to big ships, smaller shipyards have to kind of speed up because they're also going to lose business.
We need more shipyards at this point. Fincantieri has to go through this big expansion. They have to do a giant overhaul on their dry docks in order to hold Project Ace. That's how the photo of it leaked out. Is because the project company or the project management company that is doing that big project for them to make extend those dry docks to build those ships, they just put the photo out there on Google. So if you Google Project Ace, you'll find it.
Right, and that's the thing, right? Is that public information is so cool how we can find these projects. A lot of folks ask, do people leak it to us? Yes, sometimes, but a lot of times it's
people tell me
it's
all
public.
sorts of stuff, and it's ridiculous. I'm like, why are you trusting me with this?
Because I have a cruise YouTube channel and I'm professional.
Yeah.
No, it's
I tease a lot of
it's
stuff. Yeah, I like to tease a lot of
'Cause we
stuff,
have
but
a-
I usually won't leak it unless somebody says, yeah, you can go ahead and say it.
The reason we can all do this is because we have a terrific audience.
Yes, exactly. And thank you guys for 16,000 subs. I just hit that on YouTube. Awesome.
Hey.
Woo. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the industry's growing like crazy. You know, big ships are heading to Galveston. We just had MSC show up in Galveston. Now we have an Icon class going to Galveston. You know, and now we have more world class ships on the way. You know, who knows where those are going to go, you know, throughout the world. That's another thing with MSC is that they go globally with these. So like, even though there are going to be 8, unlike Royal Caribbean that puts them basically all in Florida, these are probably going to go all throughout the world. World Asia, World Europa are going to be European ships, but who knows? I mean, we could end up with, you know, I figured Asia was going to go over to Asia at some point anyways, but, you know, we could end up with one over in Asia. We could end up with one maybe on the West Coast. Who knows? I mean, California's a growing market. So
Isn't
I know
MSC going to California with the
I thought
Royal Caribbean
Bellissimo was. I thought Bellissimo was supposed to at some point. I can't find out on the schedule anymore, but I thought they originally had Bellissimo somewhere over in LA at some point in time. I don't know when.
Isn't
but
she doing Alaska?
Poesia is doing Alaska, so they have an Alaska ship now too. So I don't know if a world class would do. I don't know if a world class would do Alaska. Obviously, those are probably a little bit too big, but you know, I think a Meraviglia ship would do great up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that class of ship is also really well for the cold environments, which the West Coast, you have Alaska, which is, it's not the coldest in the summertime, but it's still a little chilly. And then in LA in the winter, I think that's a really good class of ship out there, especially with that demographic. It's a really artsy ship, and that will fit really well in the LA scene. Speaking of LA, we should talk about this before we kind of wrap things up. We were announced that Ovation is going back to LA in California, and Navigator's doing 7 nights out of LA. That was announced today as well. I may have got it's either
She's
Quantum
coming
or
back?
Ovation for the Quantum class. Yes, she's going back to LA
That's
in
good.
28. So doing 7 nights from LA.
I like that. Very good. Bring her back to Florida.
Florida. I agree. But hey, it's closer than Asia or Australia, wherever she was going. So
Right, exactly. I see World Pacific in the chat, and I've heard that name, so I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, so I think we've done a lot of rambling tonight, but we've also done a lot of cruise news talk. Was there anything else like super crazy that this happened recently that I can't think of off the top of my head?
did we talk about Indy going to New York?
That is cool. That's I think one of her first few seasons up there.
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
It's
and that's
basically just the regular itineraries that Liberty's been doing, but it's cool that
Yep.
she's a different ship up there.
Yep, that was the news of the day, was that we had Oasis out of New York and Independence with Odyssey returning, which we knew already. So that was just, we talked about that on last week's podcast. So I wanted to kind of talk about here, just to kind of, put a closure to the deployment talk. We still don't know the long-term seasonal deployments, like the winter deployment, but still good to see. I just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, a lot of really cool and exciting stuff, especially from MSC, and of course, with Perfect Day Mexico, I think it only makes sense to put Icon or a Icon, specifically Icon, over in Galveston. Of course, they're probably going to heavily emphasize the Western Caribbean itineraries out of Miami with the arrival of the 4th Icon class ship that should be named relatively soon, hopefully. So, yeah, a lot of really cool stuff coming up soon. And the industry is growing probably quicker than it can keep up with, which may end up being a problem, but that's okay. We'll cross that.
True.
We'll worry about that problem when we get there. All right. Well, with that, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for being co-hosting the podcast with us this week. Speaking
Always
of the
a pleasure.
rivalry between Royal and MSC, I have an exciting video coming out between the private islands coming out tomorrow afternoon. So stay tuned for that. It's a really exciting one. So I think it turned out quite well. So I'm hoping you guys enjoy that video. And Wonder of the Seas this weekend. So Wonder of the Seas vlogs coming up very, very soon. So lots of really cool stuff. And with that, thank you all so much for listening, watching, wherever you are, whether it's here live on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Hope you guys had fun, and we'll see you guys next week for a review of Wonder of the Seas.
Len.
Peace out.